今こそ変身せよ。6つの力が世界を変える。ロックマン X 好評発売中。カプコン。
ブラザーバンドで友とつながれ。仲間の力でロックマンがもっと強くなる。僕は君と強くなりたい。流星のロックマンペガサス、レオ、ドラゴン。
カプコン。
Hello everybody, and welcome to Touch Generation. This is a spin-off show of our regular podcast, Game Punks, where we talk about the wacky, weird, ambitious, and overlooked games library that is the Nintendo DS games library. I am Ryan.
And I am Ben.
And overlooked is certainly the name of the game with some of the stuff that we'll be talking about today. Ha, name of the game. Video
Crystal
game.
Method.
Video games. We'll certainly be talking about some overlooked titles today. And the funny thing is that with a series like Mega Man, you don't necessarily often, put that and the word overlooked together in your head, because it's like one of the most prolific and globally popular video game franchises of all time. They've been steadily coming out since the 80s with almost like a new game every year.
Except for that dark period.
Yeah, that kind of period, which we will talk about. That period kind of in the late 90s where there was just a few that weren't really coming out, and some later on in the kind of in the 2010s.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Mega Man, for a series that's so popular and so prolific, you almost would be remiss to say that none of the games in the series could be considered overlooked or even underrated. But we are here to tell you today that you are wrong, and there are definitely underrated and overlooked games in the series.
What if we told you there were 8 games on the Nintendo DS alone that you never heard of?
Yeah, or at least haven't played. Maybe you've heard of some of these games, but I can guarantee you that a lot of you probably haven't played
And Project Boring Zone isn't one of them.
No, we are not talking about Project Cross Zone. None of those games matter. Today we are talking about the 8 Mega Man games that came out between the years 2005 and 2010 on the original Nintendo DS. That is right, 8 games in the span of 5 years, which is kind of crazy.
It's probably also why there was a down period.
Maybe. The interesting thing, though, is that these games are totally different flavors of game from one another. But we'll get into that. I guess we can start out with a bit of the history of the series kind of up to this point, around the time that the DS had been coming out. So, if we're going to talk about Mega Man on the DS, we kind of have to talk about Mega Man as it existed on the Game Boy Advance, because these two eras, as you'll find out, are pretty inexorably linked. They're like the same era of game. And the games on the DS are direct successors to games on the Game Boy Advance. So, in 2001, after about 2 decades of fairly traditional approaches to Mega Man, Capcom introduced the world to Battle Network, MegaMan Battle Network. So, MegaMan Battle Network is not exactly the first Mega Man spin-off the series had experimented with, because, you have Mega Man X, which is like a sub-franchise that began in the 1990s. It was kind of like Mega Man's foray into 16 and 32-bit platforming, but they're more or less kind of a traditional take on the series. They're similar to the classic Mega Man games from the 8-bit era, but a little more advanced. And then, of course, you have Mega Man's first foray into 3D with Mega Man Legends, which came out in 1997, and its sequel and spin-off that kind of followed from there. That is also... It is a more radical departure from the series' norms, because it's a more laid-back game. It's kind of a 3D dungeon crawler with like tank controls.
Yeah, it's very slow,
but it's
compared.
Yeah,
to
but
the
it's
other
still
ones.
it's an over-the-shoulder 3D dungeon crawling shooter. It's still a shooter. That's the thing that kind of makes it still feel like Mega Man. And of course, there's like a small selection of non-canon spin-offs like Mega Man Battle and Chase, which is like a really shitty Mario Kart ripoff.
When do we get Mega Man
and
Soccer
Mega Man
back?
Soccer.
Yeah.
Mega Man Soccer, which is a fun sports game, arcadey sports game, but mostly is kind of it's total path,
Yeah,
right? It's like nobody cares.
Like, yeah, it's a SNES
it's the
sports
definition
game
of
with
fluff.
a Mega Man skin.
Exactly, and it's like this sort of thing that you probably would only sell huge amounts of in like Europe.
Yeah, it
And
is not a
maybe
Windjammers.
Europe and Asia. North America doesn't give two fucks about soccer. But anyway, so yeah, not only was like Battle Network kind of an unconventional move for them because it was like the first series to stray away from the traditional gameplay of the franchise almost fully. It was also kind of a strange move in a hardware sense because, like so many kind of second and third party developers at the time, the relationship between Capcom and Nintendo during the 3D era, during the N64 era, kind of became really iffy. And it wasn't until kind of the latter half of the 90s that you would start seeing a few Capcom games spring up on the N64. So you would get a pretty good port of Resident Evil 2 and a very compromised port of the aforementioned Mega Man Legends, which like cut out all the voice acting and was like, you know, a little bit crushed and not as good looking as the disc versions of the game. Yeah. But yeah, Battle Network is interesting because yeah, not only is it a radical departure gameplay wise, but also for that era, it was pretty significant that Capcom would put so much faith in a Nintendo console, even if it was a handheld. And they did come out swinging later with the GameCube. They kind of repaired their relationship a little bit with Nintendo at that
100%.
point. But that's a whole other episode, a whole other show.
Boy, oh boy, Battle Network.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, Mega Man Battle Network. So if you don't know what Mega Man Battle Network
I feel
is...
sorry for you,
Yeah. Yeah, one, I feel bad for you because these games are good. But second, essentially, they're Capcom's attempt to capitalize on the success of like collectible card games, toys, and handheld RPGs. So they really wanted a slice of like the Pokemon pie, basically.
Yeah.
They saw Pokemon. It's pretty nakedly obvious how this game and all of its like subsequent associated media was marketed, that is what they wanted to do, because they had digital pet toys a la Digimon with like interactive tradable features with battle chips that you would sell separately. They had action figures that would be sold with these battle chips for the digital pet toys. And they had like a dubbed Saturday morning anime called Mega Man Anti-Warrior, which is like just about as expensive an anime to produce as Pokemon.
Yeah.
So kind of looks like shit. It's old.
What's the budget on this? Put it $1 under every Pokemon episode.
The budget is ham sandwich. It's not expensive. It's like cost.
This is the show you work on
your
your
produce
lunch
one
break.
episode of this is. Oh yeah, like it's total fluff. If you watch it, it's ridiculous how like nothing.
The
it
Kirby
is.
anime holds up better.
But yeah, honestly, it does. But yeah, Mega Man Anti-Warrior, kind of like Saturday morning anime. But yeah, so it was Capcom trying to do a Pokemon. The interesting thing about it, though, is that because it's Capcom trying to do a Pokemon with Mega Man, they really kind of had to find a way to meet in the middle between like a Pokemon-style trading card, tradable monster collection RPG and a Mega Man game. So the game was developed in-house by Capcom Studio 2, who are the people who made Mega Man Legends. So it's a lot of the same team behind Mega Man Legends. And that game is actually pretty notable for incorporating a lot of RPG elements kind of into it, like town development
Legends?
and Legends, like level ups and stuff like that. So you could see they were already kind of interested in incorporating RPG elements into Mega Man, but Mega Man Battle Network is a full-on Mega Man RPG. It blends like the characters and action and shooting-focused gameplay of the classic Mega Man series, so like specifically the original Mega Man NES games, with like the story-heavy exploration, dungeon crawling, random encounters, etc. of a JRPG.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this game that kind of sets it apart from other RPGs of this time is that it's an action RPG, and the battle screen that you fall into when you go into a random battle is divided into a 3x6 grid, with Mega Man occupying a 3x3 on the left side and the enemies occupying a 3x3 on the right side of the screen. And players can freely move Mega Man around the 3x3 grid, and you can press the B button to fire the Mega Buster all the time. So you always have the ability to use the Mega Buster
But
standard.
it does very low damage.
It does very low damage, but you always have an attack if you need an
Yeah.
attack. Meanwhile, your additional move sets that would usually be kind of reserved to like a menu-based JRPG battle system
shuffled chip
instead instead becomes a shuffled deck of things called battle chips, which are essentially collectible enhancements that you get throughout the game that grant you healing items, buffs, debuffs, and weapons and special attacks.
Yeah. Also, playing field shenanigans. Like you can
things
steal
that
the
can
first
affect the
three,
grid
yeah,
battlefield.
you can, steal the first 3 or like a full row.
You can occupy enemy grids so that you have more technology, or enemies can do that to you too. They can
kind of start bombermanning it.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, Bomberman is an interesting comparison. It does feel a little like that sometimes, with the
Depending
way that
on
enemies'
which
attacks
enemy
reach
and
over
stuff.
in a grid. Yeah. But it's a pretty different take on Mega Man. It's a pretty different take on the RPG, and it's also kind of an interesting reinterpretation of the classic Mega Man games, because the lore of the Battle Network games are essentially that they take place in an alternate version of the classic series' world. But instead of advancements in like AI and robotics technology being like the dominant movement forward, web technology has instead become the focus. Very 2001, very like turn of the millennium kind of like a fascination with the internet and the web and stuff like that. But yeah, the web has become the focus of society, culture, communication, everything like that. And the main character, Lan, is the grandson of Dr. Light in this world. Well, he's called Dr. Hikari, which means light in Japanese. But he is this version's world, like the version of Dr. Light in this world. And he invented these devices called PETs, which are essentially personal computer terminals that act as like basically a cell phone does for us now. But in 2001, this is like the fantasy cell phone of the future. It's big and chunky and looks like a big digivice and that kind of stuff like that. And every PET contains a NetNavi, which is basically a navigation program that people use as an avatar to surf the internet and kind of connect with other people and connect with other technology.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a technological singularity that they're living in. And the NetNavi of the main character, Lan, is MegaMan, or MegaMan.exe. So he's an exe file. And the games are played very interestingly. They're kind of split between like a JRPG overworld field and, of course, the dungeons, which all take place within the digital world of this game. Mm-hmm. So the overworld is explored via LAN, where you run around town and you interface with technology and appliances that are hooked up to the net. And when you enter these digital dungeons and landscapes in these appliances, you go in as Mega Man, and that's where you fight viruses who serve as like the game's random encountered enemies and bosses. And it's a fairly successful formula. For the most part, it's really, really fun. Sometimes the level design is a little overwrought and long. But for the most part, the Battle Network games are very, very fun. And the cool thing about them is that eventually people came around on them. Like at first, fans were kind of trepidatious, but as soon as they got their hands on it, they loved it, and critics loved it. Like the series was like a successful experiment. And the series, in fact, was so successful that it spawned 5 sequels, beginning with Mega Man Battle Network 2, which came out the next year in 2002 immediately. So they were like churning these games out quick, and it's a much longer game. Mm-hmm. It contains a lot more refined kind of elements to it. It's kind of like it's like the difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2 Pokemon, where like everything feels better. Yeah, exactly.
Even, I believe,
and of course, a new story
too, even gets like you're a little more like, oh, this feels a little more.
It's a little more substantial. Yeah, exactly, and you get a little more into it.
Spend a little more time in the oven. This one.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just being like this little nothing game that they put out as a fun spin-off, this becomes the primary Mega Man franchise that I think a lot of people our age become acquainted with. And by the third game, they started copying Pokemon's kind of multi-version release pattern.
Had
So Mega Man Battle Network 3, you get Mega Man Battle Network 3 Blue and Mega Man Battle Network 3 White.
Yeah.
Which are dual versions, and they would continue with Mega Man Battle Network 4, 5, and 6 having a multi-version release.
Which I believe ended up being a bad move.
I think it kind of made people, I don't know, a little
sour on it. I
sour
remember
on
that
it because
being
it seemed
the
like such a
general,
cash-in.
mood in my friend group. Personally, was just kind of like, another one. Okay, well, I'll get Ruby,
and they would
get
they were literally
Sapphire.
coming out one
Yeah.
a year every year. There was like Mega Man Battle Network 3 in 03, 4 in
They
04,
Tony Hawk'd
5
it.
in 05, and 6 in 06. Yeah. There was a new one every year, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, people kind of got tired of playing around with like, you know, that series, and I played a bunch of those games.
I think I played up to 2.
I've played, I think I've played the first 4, and then I played a little of 6, and I never played 5. Speaking of 5, that's kind of where we start hopping onto the DS. So, Mega Man Battle Network 5 Double Team DS, I should say, comes out in 2005. And Mega Man Battle Network 5, the vanilla version of the game for the GBA, is a 2-version game called Mega Man Battle Network 5 Team Colonel and Team Proto Man. So there's 2 different versions of the game. Double Team DS, the DS port of this game, basically combines those 2 games and makes a 3rd version a la Pokemon Emerald. So it's essentially the Battle Network 5 Pokemon Emerald of the series. And following on from that, they kind of added a few DS exclusive elements, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to, if you're putting it on the DS, you have to have some reason to put it there.
It's a touchscreen.
So,
touch it.
Exactly. The touchscreen is there. Touching is good. That's the whole deal. We're the touch generation now. So they added a couple of new things, like this thing they called the pinch emotional state. So I suppose it's like a new secondary mechanic or an iteration on a mechanic in the original game. And they did like a special thing where you could do like a special battle against base by putting in either the Team Proto Man or Team Colonel GBA game into the DS's Game Boy Advance game slot.
Yeah.
So you would unlock some extra stuff, and there's a bunch of games later on in the series that do that too. So we'll be getting there, and a whole other like mode that you could unlock, another like form for Mega Man by putting in the Boktai 2 GBA game. So that's I don't know if you know anything about Boktai. It's Kojima's Game Boy Vampire series that's like with a solar battery in the Game Boy slot, like in the Game Boy game cartridge.
No.
They're really weird games.
Was
but
that
anyway,
Japan exclusive?
No, the first 2 actually came over here.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
Alright, well.
but if you put a copy of Boktai 2 into the GBA slot, you get a bonus form. And of course, there was other stuff like remixed music and just like a whole bunch of bonuses. Not a lot of touchscreeny stuff. It looks like it's more stuff that takes advantage of the interconnectivity between the Game Boy and the DS via the GBA port on the DS. Mm-hmm. So that GBA port on the DS is a pretty interesting kind of thing, right? It's something that you'll see gets reused later on. So Capcom are kind of cool on that. But yeah, Battle Network 5 comes out on the DS in 2005, and immediately following that, people are wondering, okay, but when are we gonna get like a real Mega Man game on the DS? And let's kind of take that sentiment that they have of when are we gonna get a real Mega Man game on the DS and flip it back to the past again. So people were kind of saying that about Battle Network when it came out as well. When are we gonna get like a real Mega Man game on the DS?
And then they announced it and canceled it 5 seconds after.
Well, lo and behold, just before like Mega Man and Bass got remade for the DS, or not for the DS but for the Game Boy, we got an original Game Boy game. It came out in 2002, just maybe a year and maybe just a few months even after Battle Network 1, called Mega Man Zero. Mega Man Zero is the second Mega Man series on the Game Boy. This series is traditional in every way that Battle Network isn't. It follows very, very, very closely the kind of gameplay conventions of the predecessor games. So the classic Mega Man games, specifically Mega Man X. because you're playing as Zero, who is one of the secondary main characters of the Mega Man X series. He is like X from Mega Man X's like companion. He's a swordsman. He's cool. He's got a long braid. But anyway, Mega Man Zero comes out in 2002. It's developed by Inta Creates, who are a studio made up mostly of like former Capcom staffers who just kind of spun off into their own studio, but they still did a lot of work with Capcom. And yeah, the Zero games are like everything that the Battle Network games aren't. They're side-scrolling run-and-gun platformers. They've got kind of an exploratory, story-heavy kind of vibe to them, but they're still mostly the same, selecting like a boss from a screen, doing a stage, beating the boss, and going back after kind of formula that you would expect from previous Mega Man games. And the coolest thing about this game, though, at least in my opinion, is kind of the way that the story plays out between all four of the games. So the games have like a very, very tightly... I don't know if I'd call it tightly written, but tightly interwoven narrative that you follow throughout all three of them, where you play as Zero trying to fight against an evil kind of city called Neo Arcadia that's being ruled over by an evil copy of X from Mega Man X. So Mega Man is now a series about trying to fight Mega Man, which is pretty interesting. And another big thing that Mega Man Zero kind of introduced to the series, like maybe it's one huge like contribution to the gameplay, is the elemental chips. So now enemies have like elemental affiliations, fire, ice, or thunder, and there's a rock, paper, scissors kind of type trumping like in Pokemon.
Yeah. Or,
to it, or like in Fire Emblem with the weapons triangle.
Yeah, I was about to say, a lot of gacha games have actually adopted the weapons triangle.
Yeah, so it's exactly like that. Like there's fire bosses, ice bosses, thunder bosses, or normal bosses with no elemental affiliation, who are usually the hardest ones to fucking fight. Yeah. Because you can't just like beat their ass hard with a specific elemental attack. Yeah, which is interesting. It always makes one of the bosses you fight in a set of four the more difficult of the four. Yeah. And they're the ones that are usually the most interesting with their theming and stuff, because Mega Man Zero kind of goes back to the Mega Man X thing of making bosses kind of a cross between an animal and an element, which is a very cool thing that is I really like that they did, and they kept up with this. But yeah, Mega Man Zero, it's developed by Inta Creates. The first game was directed by Yoshinori Kawano. Of course, it was produced by Inafune, who had his fingers in every Mega Man related project at the time. Another cool thing that I really like, something that I consider super important about these games in particular, is the art design by Toru Nakayama. It's a very, very unique looking art style. The Mega Man Zero games look like pretty much no other games, apart from other games that Nakayama has worked on. There is basically no games that look like this. And I think the composers, too, Ippo Yamada and Setsuo Yamamoto, do like a really interesting take on the typical Mega Man soundtrack. Because I found the soundtracks of the Zero games, they're far more memorable than the soundtracks of Battle Network. Nobody thinks about the Battle Network soundtracks, I don't think. They're kind of secondary in the way that, like... you would kind of think they would be with a series that's just kind of trying to be a Pokemon. The focus is more on replicating the gameplay and less the music, right? Because Pokemon, of course, has great music. Yeah. But yeah, these games, the Mega Man Zero games, have a huge focus on music, and it kind of in the way that the classic Mega Man games, the X games, are known for their very great music. I think the Zero games kind of continue it. So yeah, Ippo Yamada and Setsuo Yamamoto's score for Mega Man Zero and for the subsequent Zero games, it's kind of like Mega Man X with that heavy metal guitar mixed in with a little bit of like New Millennium house music and electronic dance music, which is really cool. And just a touch of like cinematic scores, because these games are a lot more cinematic than even than the X games that had actual cinematic cutscenes, which are like very laughable to watch now, but were obviously the shit when they were out on the PS1 and people were looking at these fully animated anime-ass cutscenes. But yeah, this little GBA game was basically Capcom's reply to all the people who are bitching about not getting a Mega Man game for the Game Boy that was like the old Mega Man games. And the Zero series would go on once again to kind of have like a new release every year. 4 games in total. And then the series just kind of ended. The last game in the series, not to spoil anything, does end with Zero pretty definitively being killed.
Yeah.
But saving the world in the process. So kind of ending that story there. Yeah. And 4 was even like not even supposed to happen. Like the developers, I was reading in the book that I have of this game, the Mega Man Zero Megamix art book. That the developers were like, yeah, we kind of just wanted to make 3, but then they're like, you can make 4, and we're like, I guess we'll make 4, and then they did, and then in 4 they properly ended the story. Yeah. But like honestly, just in these 4 games alone, like they pack in so much dense like Mega Man gameplay and action. They're really difficult in all the ways that, once again, Battle Network is a fairly user-friendly beginners kids RPG.
Yeah, where Mega Man games will just blow your ass out every chance.
Yeah, these games are fucking hard. They are difficult as shit, and that's where we kind of loop back around to the DS again, because that's what this podcast is about. So Mega Man Zero, couple of games on the Game Boy. There's 4 of them. They're all fairly popular. They're all well received. People are wondering now, okay, so we got a Mega Man Battle Network port on the DS. When are we going to get a DS Mega Man game? 2006, just 2 years after the DS's launch, Mega Man ZX comes out. And this is where shit gets real, for lack of a better term. Mega Man ZX is a direct sequel to Mega Man Zero. It takes place 200 years in the future after Mega Man Zero 4. It is stated directly. It's directed by Ryota Ito and Yuichiro Hayakawa, with art by Makoto Yabe, who did the character designs. Yabe was actually also the writer, one of the 2 writers on the game, along with Kenichi Ikegami. And a lot of the composers from the Zero series, plus a few others, returned to do the score, so it's a very interesting score. But yeah, Mega Man ZX is the first proper traditional-style Mega Man game on the DS. Or is it? Mega Man ZX is also the first game in the series to kind of branch into the Metroidvania subgenre. So Mega Man ZX, while being a direct story sequel to Zero, and having most of the same gameplay as Zero, instead of kind of navigating the world through menus and entering stages through like a trans server menu like you would kind of in traditional Mega Man games, the game has a fully explorable, interconnected 2D world like a Metroidvania game. In fact, that was like I think maybe the thing that a lot of people noted about it when it was first announced. It's also actually the first game in the series where you can choose to play as either a male or female hero, which is really cool. So the game has 2 protagonists, Vent and Ale. Vent, I believe, is a human, while Ale is a Reploid girl. Reploids are like the androids from the Mega Man X series who are also present in the Zero series. And humans and Reploids in the future now are existing peacefully, unlike in X and Zero where they're kind of at war with one another. And both are treated as humans legally due to laws in the world that protect the humanity and right to live of Reploids. So now Earth has kind of come back up from this period of war 200 years in the past, and suddenly, out of nowhere, these things called biometals appear. Biometals are like the main game mechanic of Mega Man ZX that kind of sets it apart from other Mega Man games and how it plays. Instead of copying enemies' powers, you transform fully into them. So there's a bunch of different forms throughout the game that you acquire that are based on characters from the Mega Man Zero series. These are characters called the 4 Guardians, Harpuya, Leviathan, Fafnir, and Phantom. These are characters that were like boss characters in the Zero series, but their abilities and powers are fully your powers in ZX. So along with your standard Mega Buster style blue Mega Man and like a sword wielding character who plays basically exactly like Zero from the Mega Man Zero games, you have 4 new forms that are completely different. They're each kind of affiliated with one of those elements that come over from the Zero series. And the way that this series interprets the concept of who Mega Man is brand new. This is also kind of like Mega Man meets Tokusatsu or Super Sentai or Kamen Rider. Maybe Kamen Rider more than any of them.
Yeah.
So biometals are pieces of like organic living metal that have the personalities and memories of these old heroes from the Mega Man Zero series. And the goal of the game, as you beat each boss, is to collect one of two halves of a piece of biometal to make a new biometal to give you a new form. The bosses can be fought pretty much in any order,
as usual,
because it's a Metroidvania. Yeah. And but you have to kind of traverse the world to find their lairs. And there's 2 bosses per each kind of elemental affiliation. So 2 for fire, 2 for thunder, 2 for ice, and 2 for regular.
Since they would only give you one
and
half
then
of the...
Exactly. And then you have 4 new forms. Each one has one half. These bosses that you fight are called pseudoroids. They're basically androids that are powered by the biometals themselves. And they have, of course, elemental powers and shit. And they each one also kind of has like a little chunk of the ability of that biometal. So when you fight them, you see them using things that are attacks you will be using later, which calls back to the original catch of the original Mega Man games, which is you steal powers from your enemy robot masters, right? But yeah, the coolest thing about these games, at least for me as like a big fan of tokusatsu, is this reinterpretation of Mega Man not as like an individual, but as a name for a group of things. So if you are a Mega Man in this series, it means you are a human or Reploid who has biomatched with a biometal, which means that you have partnered up with it. And Model X is the main game you get. The main one you start out with. It's like Mega Man. You play it as a side-scrolling shooter. He's blue. He looks like Mega Man X, and he has the soul of X from the Mega Man X games in him. There's also Model Z, which has the soul of Zero, and then those two biometals you can double Mega Merge with them. That's like the Morphin Time kind of name for what you do. They call it Mega Merge, which is really cool. You can double Mega Merge with the 2 of them, and you become Mega Man ZX, which is basically Zero. But the other models are Model H, who is based on the character of Harpuya from the Zero games. This is the Thunder Mega Man that can fly. It has like twin swords, and you can kind of generate like sword beams and stuff, and you can create tornadoes, and you can hover and kind of have like aerial recovery. There's Model L based on Leviathan, so it's a underwater form that is like hyper maneuverable in underwater areas. You have like a twin bladed glaive or like spear that you can spin in an arc and create ice and stuff like that with, and you can even make like an ice dragon as an attack, which is really cool. It's very, very OP when you're underwater. When you're on land, it's like it's okay, but when you're underwater, your enemies are fucked. Then there's Model F, which is based on Fafnir. It's a big fire Mega Man. It has these 2 huge incendiary like grenade launching guns. They're like these huge like knuckle guns on each of your arms, and you can punch with them, punch the ground and create like a torrent of lava coming out of the fucking ground with it. They're so cool. And there is Model P, which is based on the character of Phantom. This is like your Naruto Ninja 2006 fantasy, because you can throw laser kunais and a big shuriken, and you can like hop and cling to walls like a ninja. You can run really fast and do that cool thing where you run through an enemy and you cut them through as you go through them. It's the most anime shit ever. It's so good. This whole game is really some anime shit. Very, very tokusatsu superhero stuff. And it was right up my alley. And that game was freaking awesome. Now, immediately following the release of Mega Man ZX, Capcom announced that they had a new series of Mega Man games coming to the DS, and this is where Battle Network once again becomes relevant. Mega Man Star Force is a sequel series to Mega Man Battle Network. In Japanese, they're called, I think it's Shooting Star Rockman, so Rockman is Mega Man's Japanese name. But the whole theme of this game is they're kind of like two Mega Man Battle Network what ZX is to Zero, in that they take place far in the future of this other series, a new kind of technology or new kind of ways in which this world has adjusted following whatever happened in the previous series. But Star Force comes out in 2007. Like the Mega Man Battle Network games, they do a kind of style release, really multi-versions. But they actually had 3 versions as opposed to 2. So there's Mega Man Star Force Pegasus, Mega Man Star Force Leo, and Mega Man Star Force Dragon. Now, these games, kind of like Mega Man Battle Network, are basically play the same way, where you play as a human who is bonded with like a digital being who you can use as Mega Man. But in this game, kind of like in Mega Man ZX, actually, you merge with this being to form Mega Man. But yeah, the plot of the game is as follows. So it's about a 5th grader named Geo, who is like a depressed kid who has been mourning his father's disappearance. He doesn't want to go to school. But one day, an alien from the planet FM, you like FM radio waves, called Omega, visits him to kind of help him solve the mystery of his father's disappearance. And Mega can merge with Geo to form this game's version of Mega Man. It's basically the same kind of game as Battle Network. So it's an RPG series with a split between an RPG field and dungeon system and random battles that play out in a reinterpretation of like the 3x6 grid action RPG battles of the Battle Network games. So the game essentially, instead of rendering you on a 2D plane where you're on a 3x3 and an enemy's on a 3x3, you're on a 3-dimensional kind of grid and you view Mega Man from an over-the-shoulder perspective, and the movement is restricted only to left and right. So the dodging attacks is just on a left and right plane, and you can move up in 3 panels to the front row, and enemies take out like the rest of the battlefield. So like it's limited movement from the 3x3 grid. It's a little different. I find that this makes the game harder, which I think is needed because the Battle Network games, in my opinion, are almost too easy. Versus like the way that this game plays out, it makes the battles a little more difficult. They feel a little more strategic, and they take advantage of the DS's capability of rendering 3D, because the battles are rendered in 3D as opposed to the isometric 2D pixel art of the field and dungeon maps, which is really interesting. Instead of using battle chips for the deck building battle system, you have these things called battle cards, which are basically the same thing. They do the exact same thing. And you also have additional transformations called Star Forces, which allow you to transform either into the form Leo Kingdom, Pegasus Magic, or Dragon Sky, depending on the version of the game you bought, Leo, Pegasus, or Dragon. I have Leo, personally. And the transformation is kind of treated as like a card that you can get once it shows up on the screen, and it allows you to just kind of overpower your enemies with a really strong enemy attack, which is really cool. And this game, I think the first one is really, really interesting. The way that its story is structured reminds me of like a season of an anime, in that each kind of little story arc plays out like an episode, and the end of each episode feels like the end of an episode in a season of a TV show. And there's like an undercurrent, of course, of like a story of Geo trying to find what happened out to his dad. But for the most part, there's kind of like, what will happen is an EM. Oh yeah, so I already mentioned the alien that you merge with, Omega. He's from the planet FM. Well, you're fighting evil aliens from the planet AM. And all of these beings are called EM beings. They're electromagnetic beings from these planets that are made up of electromagnetic waves. And so these characters are able to kind of come to Earth and corrupt appliances or corrupt Geo's friends and turn them into kind of enemy EM beings that you have to fight. And these are the guys that become the bosses. So the characters that take over these characters are all based on different constellations. And that kind of comes in with the Star Force name. Like there's a lot of talk of satellites and space travel and alien planets and like communication, and of course these electromagnetic beings that live on a planet made of EM waves. But basically they play out like I said, kind of like a season of an anime each time. and they're really quite fun. Like, they're, like I said, a little harder than the Battle Network games. The games ended up having 2 sequels, kind of going forward from there. There was Mega Man Star Force 2, which was released in 2 versions, Zerker X Ninja, like Berserker X Ninja, and Zerker X Saurian, Berserker X Dinosaur. Yeah. And the game is just got a direct story sequel, like Battle Network 2. Instead of having 3 versions, it just has 2, thank God. And you get 2 forms per game as opposed to a 1 form per each game, which is, I think, a much more elegant way of marketing the series, as opposed to making somebody buy maybe even potentially 3 games in order to get the full experience. Mm-hmm. But yeah, these games, kind of like Mega Man Battle Network 5 on the DS, don't really use like the DS's capabilities too radically. Like, they, of course, there's stuff that's played on the touchscreen, like the battles are kind of playing out on the touchscreen, yeah, right? But for the most part, it's mostly like selecting stuff from an additional menu that's always present, or mapping stuff out. I should say, the way that the Mega Man ZX games, sorry to digress back there, use the touchscreen is, because they're a Metroidvania, it has an ever-growing auto-map feature, which is very, very useful for a game like that to have. And it shows like the strength of the DS hardware, not just because it has the extra capability to render all this impressive kind of graphical flourishes and to have touch controls, but just like the presence of a second screen alone mitigating a lot of, like, you know, quality of life issues that you experience with games in that genre, you know? Having to always switch back to a menu screen as opposed to having one present there throughout the whole gameplay experience makes a big difference in navigating that world. It makes it a lot less of a chore, you know? So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, Star Force 2 came out here in the United States and Canada and North America and Europe and PAL regions, so it was world release. And then, unfortunately, Mega Man Star Force 3, which was released in 2 versions called Black Ace and Red Joker, was the last game to kind of come out in the series. The series is kind of petering off. It never really reached the same amount of success as the Battle Network games. I think it was because it didn't have as strong a marketing push in the US as it did over in Japan or in Canada. But that game only got released in North America and in Japan. They never got a release in any other region. So no European release and no PAL release. So it just goes to show you how they were kind of slipping away in popularity. But yeah, the Star Force games are really, really kind of fun, and I think they're worth going back to. They're also not expensive if you want to buy them on the secondary market. They don't cost too much. And they're fun if you like the Battle Network games, which I do also recommend you play if you haven't. They did have Wi-Fi connection, so you could battle your friends.
Battle your friends.
And, of course, yeah, battle your friends in, like, you know, wireless multiplayer, yeah, a big thing that the DS was able to do. And they also had kind of some, you know, additional features from connecting Battle Network games in the GBA slot, right? Stuff that we were talking about prior. It's something they became really fond of.
Yeah.
But yeah, just additional kind of content that would be unlocked, like new bosses to fight, alternate kind of stuff, or hidden, and maybe even a hidden chapter of the game. And of course, then those games kind of came out in succession. Mega Man Star Force 2 came out in 2007. In 2008. Mega Man Star Force 3 came out in 2009. And then in between those games, Mega Man ZX got a sequel. And that game is a little game called Mega Man ZX Advent. This is a game that I love. I like this game more than the original Mega Man ZX. I like this game more than I think I like pretty much any other Mega Man game. Might be my favorite game in the whole series. Mega Man Z, maybe it's just because it's such like a personal game for me, and I'll get into that later. But Mega Man ZX Advent, it was first announced at the World Hobby Fair in 2007. It's the second and only other installment in the ZX series, unfortunately. And kind of the cool thing about this game, in my opinion, is the way that it jumps way forward in time from the original ZX, like almost, I think, 10 years in the future. And basically pits you against like a legion of kind of unstoppable soldiers, pseudoroid soldiers, like in the previous game, who are biometal powered, that are being kind of, I guess, unleashed upon the world to instigate various characters into like a death game against each other. So this is like the Mega Man Kamen Rider thing that I was talking about before. This feels a lot like a Kamen Rider series called Kamen Rider Ryuki, which is a series where a bunch of Kamen Riders fight each other in a death game to decide who will be like the king of the world,
Rider Royale.
essentially. Yeah. It is a battle royale between you and the other Mega Men in this game. So you don't acquire the other Mega Man powers for a long time. And you don't even have Mega Man's Model X or Model Z in this game either. Instead, you control a new biometal model called Model A. Model A looks a little bit like Axel from Mega Man Zero. Or not Mega Man Zero, Mega Man... I think it's Mega Man X8, the one on the PS2. There's a character called Axel in it, who looks a little like Model A, and maybe is more than a little bit the inspiration, but plot-wise, you find out that A does not stand for Axel later on. I won't give it away. But, yeah, there is a shadowy kind of puppet master character who is forcing these Mega Men to fight against each other, telling them that whoever wins this death game will become the king of the world. And so you, as either Gray or Ash, picking up from the play as either a male or female protagonist from the previous game, have to kind of figure out how to get yourself out of this situation and stop these Mega Men from fighting and playing into the whims of this mysterious puppet master. So, and returning from the previous Mega Man ZX game are two other characters called Prometheus and Pandora, who were in the first Mega Man ZX as kind of recurring antagonist characters who were working in conjunction with the game's main villain, but kind of seemingly had their own, like, I guess, their own agenda that they were trying to accomplish. And in the end, you don't end up killing them, like, they end up getting away. So they return in this game, and they're far more prominent characters. You even get to learn about their origin story. But, so yeah, it really is in a lot of ways just a direct story sequel. And the previous character from ZX, Venter Ale, will show up later in the game as kind of a mentor character to you. They're much older, and they still have Model ZX, which is really awesome. And they let you copy Model ZX so that you can use it later on. But, yeah, the four other Mega Man in the game are Aeolus, Atlas, Sharnak, and Thetis. And these characters are like the ones who are controlling the other biometal that you had in the other games. Yeah, this death game that they're in is called the Game of Destiny, and each one has kind of a particular motivation for doing it. So Aeolus is like a perfectionist who believes that like he is the only person in the world worthy of like resetting like the world to like a state where it would be like deserving of its existence. So he's like a total stuck-up asshole. He calls everybody fool, and he's the one who controls Model H, the Wind Mega Man. Atlas, who is the Model F Mega Man, the Fire Mega Man, she was a soldier in a country that was destroyed by Maverick Reploids, and she believes that basically the only way people can evolve or are galvanized to evolve is through struggle and war. So she wants to use her status as like this king of the new world to instigate conflict so that people can rise above conflict, which is a very like Hegelian dialectics kind of shitty idea that doesn't make any fucking sense. And really stupid. Sharnak, who is the Phantom Mega Man, the Model P one who uses the shadow kind of ninja techniques, he is a hunter and like an assassin who was betrayed by his former comrades and left for dead. So he wants to use his status as like the king to basically get revenge on fucking everybody that like everybody wants to, like everybody who hurt him essentially. Which is you know, a pretty human and understandable motivation.
Revenge is,
and then I feel like people get revenge, you know.
I feel like
more so than wanting to force people to evolve by forcing them to participate in war.
And even then, too many people think that's a thing. But whatever.
Exactly. And and then there's Thetis, who is the Model L controller.
Yeah.
He's like a little boy who's controlling this water Mega Man power. He looks like a little upstanding, kind, like good boy character.
Is he the worst shit?
But he is a fucking eco-terrorist piece of garbage who wants to drown the world and destroy everybody for polluting the sea with waste. He's so nasty. He's like a nasty little piece of shit.
Poseidon.
He is like he is an evil little motherfucker. Like when you like get into a conversation with him, he's like, "Yeah, I'm Thetis. I'm the Water Mega Man." And then like 2 minutes later, he's like, "I'm gonna fucking kill everybody." So he's like a little psycho, like a little psycho eco-terrorist.
The world's screaming. I know you can hear it.
Yeah. A big difference from this game over ZX is that ZX has a lot of Japanese voice acting. This game has an English dub. It's not good.
Well,
but there's never really been a good Mega Man dub for anything, so that's fine.
Has there ever been a good dub for anything at all? Yes, that was a joke.
Yes, absolutely.
There's really good ones out
Has there ever been a good dub for a Mega Man voice game? Fuck no.
No.
God no. Like the previous game, you have to fight a bunch of pseudoroid characters with powers that are drawn from these biometals, but instead of gaining the biometals from fighting these characters, you gain them from fighting the Mega Men that you're fighting against in this death game. So what do you get from the bosses if you're not getting one half of a biometal? You get to transform into the fucking boss themselves.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the big thing with this game, the big mechanical power is called A-Trans. Where you trans your Mega Man's gender into another another robot. You essentially transform entirely into these bosses that you fought in the past, and they each have like a very different kind of play style. Like some of them are very different. There's a character called Buckfire, who's the first boss that you fight. He's a fire stag who he's a little racist actually, because he's got like this Native American kind of flavor to his design. Yeah. He speaks in like an Ooga Chaka racist kind of stilted accent too, which sucks big time. Good thing he's the first one you fucking kill, so you don't have to think about him after. But yeah, when you play as him, you get the ability to shoot fire arrows and to dash with like a flame dash, and to also dash upwards with like a big flame jump that turns you into basically an upwards spiraling sword, which is really cool. There's Chronoforce, who is like a big horseshoe crab Reploid, who is literally useless on fucking land. Like, he literally can't move. But when he's in the water, he's super fast and hyper maneuverable. He can stop time with his charge attack for like a brief period of time, and he can freeze people with like ice missiles. So he's pretty cool, and he's navigatable, and he can maneuver into small spaces because he's thin. Mm-hmm. There's Argoyle and Ugoyle, who are a pair of these two little cat-like lion statue guys. You fight them as twins, but you only play as Argoyle when you get him. They have like wheels for feet. They're normal elemental guys, and they can just kind of speed around on the little feet wheels, which is fun, and they can throw bombs. Which is neat. There's Rosespark, the Fluoroid, who's a Thunder Elemental flower-based Reploid, who he kind of, when he's on the ground, he's like a giant flower bud that spins around and has like just kind of a basic lashing attack with his whip arms, and like a missile that shoots out of his head that's like a little thunder missile when you charge it. But when you hop onto like a vine character, or not a vine, when you hop onto like a vine or like a pole or something, like that kind of surface in the game, he turns into like this like giant flower that can maneuver between things really dexterously, and he gains like a lot more attack power, and he's just super maneuverable and really fun to play as. There's Queen Bee, who's a giant like fire-based bee essentially, and she has like a giant magazine of drones that she attaches to at her bottom that looks like her big abdomen, like a big queen bee abdomen, and it's full of just all these different drones. And when you transform into her regularly, she can like attach to different payloads and carry them around to solve puzzles. There's Headshock, who's like a little hedgehog, thunder hedgehog, electric hedgehog power, like Sonichu, a little Sonichu, who can like power things up with electric power, like kind of like a power source, and can roll into a little ball and go into small spaces like Samus going into the Morph Ball, which is really cool. There's Voltron, who is the non-elemental based Reploid, who is like a vulture who has an electric guitar, and he speaks like a metalhead from the 80s. He makes a lot of like 80s heavy metal references in his English dialogue, which is very Mega Man X5, where they named all the characters after Guns N' Roses. And he can like fly around, and he has like a sonic attack with the guitar weapon, which is really cool. And then there's Bifrost the Crocoroid, who's like a giant crocodile who's freaking massive. He takes up like half the screen when you play as him. He can open his mouth and just fire a bunch of missiles from his mouth, which is really awesome. And they're like ice missiles that are all of his teeth. And he can chomp through barriers and shit. Yeah. Really, really fun character to play as. Massive. And he can freeze shit because he's an ice guy.
Big boy.
But big, like it's a kind of a huge... Oh yeah, and of course you can play as all the different Mega Man plus Model ZX, and you can there's an alternate model that can be unlocked if you put Mega Man 03 Game Boy game cartridge into the slot. You can play as Model O, which is essentially Omega from Mega Man 03, who's like the primary antagonist, and it looks just like the sprite from the Mega Man Zero games of Zero. And really, really, really freaking cool. Just like basically an overpowered Zero from that game. Mm-hmm. And you can also play as model lowercase a instead of regular model capital A, who is like an 8-bit styled version of Model A that plays like classic Mega Man, which is really, really cute. There's actually a whole mini game in the game called Mega Man lowercase a that's just 8-bit like Mega Man clone. It's like a single stage game where you go and you beat like an 8-bit version of the final boss of ZX Advent at the end of the game. But yeah, Advent is a really, really fun game. And I really, really think it's like my favorite game for the DS that was Mega Man. But before we get to just talking about my personal experiences, there were 2 other games that came out for the DS that were Mega Man games. One of them only came out in Japan, and it's called Mega Man EXE Operate Shooting Star. It's a remake of Mega Man Battle Network 1.
Weird.
But it includes some, multiplayer stuff and touchscreen controls. It also has arranged music where like it's not really arranged music, it's just echoes added to the original music tracks. And there's voice acting added to some parts of the game. And there's a whole new chapter which actually crosses over with Mega Man Star Force. Oh. And that's where it makes it really interesting. Unfortunately, it only came out in Japan, like I said, and they never had any plans to release it over here, I guess because of just how not great Star Force did. This game came out a couple of years after the last... Actually, it came out the same year that Star Force 3 came out in Japan, in 2009. A couple of years after Advent, so 2 years after. And never came over here, but it's something that I've always been interested in playing. And I was thinking, because the DS is famously a non-region locked console, I might import it and see if I can try and get a translation patch for it.
Yeah.
Because it looks like a lot of fun. Or maybe emulate it if I can. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of idea. I'd like to see how this like extra chapter where you cross over with Star Force plays out, where you fight a character called Clockman EXE, who I guess sends Geo from Star Force back in time to meet Lan and Mega Man. But it seems a lot of fun. It added 2 modes called Team Battle and Versus Base, where you fight against base, and a bunch of other changes, including like an auto map function on the bottom screen when you're in cyberspace. So all the dungeons of the game are kind of mapped out for you, which is nice. The game also has an auto run they added, which is useful. Because auto run is really awesome. And it sucks to have to hold down a button to run, because it always makes your thumb hurt. And they actually they added the option of fleeing battles by pressing L to Battle Network 1, which actually wasn't something you could do until Battle Network 2. So they fixed that shit, which I remember playing Battle Network 1 and not being able to flee random battles, and yeah, that did suck. It's like a big big missed point, and it clearly shows that like even though they were making a JRPG and they probably knew how to make a JRPG, some shit just is not automatically thought about, and then later on just is fixed in a sequel, right? Mm-hmm. very Pokemon, like adding the running shoes, later on, right? And then the final DS release for the Mega Man series is the Mega Man Zero Collection, which is exactly what it says. It was a way to get all 4 Mega Man Zero games on one game card for the DS. This is the last Mega Man game released. Came out in 2010. I remember exactly when I bought it and how old I was and where. I bought it at HMV when I was... yeah. I bought it at HMV when I was
had video games?
HMV had video games for a period of time. HMV existed. But I bought it at HMV in 2010. I think maybe 2 days after it came out. 2 days after it came out, and maybe 3 or 4 years before that.
Yeah, it was about that. I think
place went under. But
yo, they still owe me a Tegan and Sarah vinyl box set, eh? Just
really?
I pre-ordered it and everything.
Damn.
They were like, "We'll call you." And then one day I went to go to the store to be like, "What the fuck?" And it wasn't there anymore.
Wow, what the fuck?
And that same shit happened to me at that store on fucking St. Catherine, the video game store right in front of the Best Buy. That's now like a...
Game Buzz.
Yes.
Buzz.
I pre-ordered. I don't remember what fucking game it was, but I was like, all right, time to go pick up... Oh, it doesn't exist now. Okay. I think Pat from Castle Super Beast also has a similar story with the exact same store.
That makes sense because that store fucking sucked.
Yeah.
And all of the Game Buzz locations sucked. They were like, what if EB Games was overpriced?
What if EB Games was overpriced and didn't tell you they were closing?
Yeah,
when
they really were not
something
great.
A week before. Anyway.
all of their shit cost so much. But yeah, Mega Man Zero Collection was just a cheap and convenient way to get all the Mega Man Zero games in one place. Because those games, as Game Boy Advance games, became hard to find and kind of expensive later on because they were like cult classics, right? And so the Mega Man Zero Collection came out. I bought it, and that's actually the first time that I played Mega Man Zero's 1, 2, and... no, just 1 and 2, because I'd played 3 and 4. But it was the first time I ever played 1 and 2, which are probably the 2 worst games in that series anyway. 3 and 4 are, like, ridiculously better, like, just by comparison.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Mega Man Zero Collections, the last Mega Man game released on the DS. Sadly, the 3DS wouldn't get an original Mega Man game. It would get, however, a bunch of really great Mega Man ports. And it would get Azure Striker Gunvolt, which is a game that Inti Creates would develop. That is kind of a spiritual sequel to the Mega Man Zero and ZX games.
Just like Mighty Number 9.
Yeah. But instead of being shit like Mighty Number 9, they're good.
Which also did not come out on the DS, by the way.
No, did not come out on the DS. And even if it did, wouldn't fucking count.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mighty Number 9 was shit. Inti Creates actually had a hand in Mighty Number 9,
unfortunately.
But clearly it wasn't their best people working on it. Or if it was, the game was being developed in the wrong engine to begin with anyway. The really cool thing about most of these games, most of them, and by most I mean Mega Man Zero 1 to 4 and Mega Man ZX and ZX Advent, is that they just released a Mega Man Zero ZX Legacy Collection for the Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and Steam. So if you didn't ever get a chance to play ZX or ZX Advent on the DS, you do have an opportunity to play them now. They're not compromised ports. They are very good ports of those games. As well as the first 4 Mega Man Zero games, which I think 6 great games is a pretty good bang for your buck for the full price thing. They're all very, very good. And something that I think a lot of fans have been demanding Capcom do for a long time is give us a Battle Network / Star Force Legacy Collection. Star Force I see being a lot more difficult to kind of bring over.
But I feel like Battle
because
Network is
half of the
happen.
game takes...
Especially since
Battle
ZX,
Network has to happen. Yeah, because the ZX one happened, Battle Network has to, right?
Like, I feel like it's loud enough. I feel like enough people are like, Battle Network when? That Capcom will eventually be like...
honestly.
Plus, like, the first 2 sold like fucking hotcakes for Capcom.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why they made 6 of them.
Those games were massive. That's why they made 6 of them to begin with. Yeah, they were hugely popular. They sold very well. They were like
the
success
Battle
critically
Network
and
shit had a
financially.
fucking Tamagotchi ripoff where you had either the Proto Man or the Mega Man like little slider shit, and you could actually get cards and like connect the two and play against your friends on a like 8-bit fucking Hasbro toy looking shit screen.
Yeah, they were basically like the Takara Digivices from Digimon, and they were, like a digital pet, like a Tamagotchi.
They worked and were fun. Like if you were playing alone,
and you can slot in the different battle chips that you bought individually. Like if you I have a bunch of those toys.
Yeah, if you didn't have any friends that didn't have it, it kind of sucked. But I remember my friends got some after a bit, and we were like, "Yeah, let's go!" It replaced Pokemon for like a good fucking bit.
That's nice. That's actually really cool. Tight. I wish I had had that experience. I had a Blood of the Battle Network action figures. I had a couple of them. I had Torchman, I had Mega Man, I had Searchman as well. They all had like they came with battle chips to play with the PETs with. Yeah, those are really fun. But let's just get to the memory part of this. I mean, did you ever play any of these games?
Not on the DS. Like I have the first two Battle Network. And for Mega Man, the only thing I touched on the DS was Project Boring Zone, and that doesn't really count. It was just the only game that had, besides Smash, that had Mega Man in it.
Pretty much.
I played on the DS. So for me, like, it's kind of a quiet episode. It's more of an educational episode for me, honestly. But like, I do now, knowing that the history is so fucking deep, and that there's actually a Battle Network spinoff of sorts. I might actually look up and try to hunt down some of these copies.
I recommend it. I was replaying Battle Network, or no, not Battle Network, but Star Force Leo, just kind of in preparation for this. And like I said, I like the structure of the games. They feel like each game is like a season of an anime, and each game kind of gets closer to like unraveling all these mysteries about these electromagnetic beings and shit like that. And that's something that I remember the Battle Network games doing good too, is like each game feeling like a season of an anime. I remember like playing 1 and then 2 directly spinning off, and then 3 completely like going really deep into the lore again. And then by the time you get to 6, the series does have like a definitive end, and Lan gets married to Male, who's like the love interest, and they have a kid together, and they have like a happy future. And I'm like, this is like, it feels like a complete show, like a 52 episode anime or something, where you see this character grow from little Baba into like a man, you know? Mm-hmm. And it was very cool. You also do learn in Battle Network that, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but Mega Man is actually like your dead twin brother whose soul was put into NetNavi, which is kind of insane. It's like some shit that is very anime, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's Lan, Mega Man's actually your twin brother Hub, Lan and Hub, because internet.
I love it. I'm about to jack off.
I mean, yeah. Oh yeah, and of course they call, when you go into something, it's called jacking in, which is really funny.
Yeah. And when you get out, it's jacking off.
Jacking off, it's so funny, so funny. It's they didn't know what they were doing. That's like when the Scat Man there did that song where he says calling out from Scatland. Like, he was innocent. He didn't know what he was saying. He didn't know what he was saying. They didn't know that they were saying something kind of dirty. But yeah, I guess my history with these games is like, whereas you're kind of somebody who seems like they had more experience with Battle Network, I definitely have more experience with Zero and the Zero games. Like, I would borrow Mega Man 03 from my friend all the time, and I would always get my ass handed to me by that game. It's very difficult. A cool thing that Mega Man Zero Collection, and actually the ZX Zero Collection too, does is that there is kind of an easy mode for the games.
Yeah.
Although for the Zero Collection on the DS, you can only play the easy mode as all 4 of the games back to back, starting from 1 to 4, with no breaks in between.
Oh, that kind of sucks.
As like one interconnected thing. You can't just play one individually easy.
I've always preferred like Mega Man being a brutal, like soul crushing experience. Anyway.
Oh yeah, that's kind of how I like my Mega Man too. I like getting my ass handed to me in Mega Man. I feel like it's authentic. But it's authentic to the original games, that's for sure, because those are freaking hard. And Mega Man X are hard too.
Yeah.
The 0-1, honestly, I'd say 0-1 on the Game Boy without the easy mode is almost impossible. It's so hard. I've never seen anybody beat it. It's so difficult. 2 as well. 3 is a lot more manageable, but it's still difficult. And that's the one that I would borrow all the time. Maybe it's more manageable because I just played it so much more. And then 4, I actually have a very vivid memory of staying with my aunt in Newmarket in Ontario and renting it from like the Rogers store, because you could rent like Game Boy games there, which blew my fucking mind.
What?
And I know, renting Mega Man 04 for Game Boy and blasting through that shit in like a week.
Renting Game Boy games?
I know, it's insane. I didn't know that you could do that until then. It's like it was like
that's mind-boggling.
Like some bonkers upside down world I was living in. It was weird.
I mean, like, it makes sense.
Ontario is different.
It makes
man.
sense, but yeah, Ontario's it just hits different.
Ontario
the 6
is
different. Weird.
It hits different. But yeah, it was really weird that you could do that. But yeah, I remember powering through 04 in like a week.
That's gonna fuck me up for like another 3 days. Toronto's
I know,
weird.
it's nuts. I couldn't believe it.
Don't shake hands with anyone from Toronto. I don't trust that shit.
Dude, I don't trust that shit. I don't trust like that. But fucking yeah, Mega Man Star Force, like my friend who I had borrowed Mega Man 03 from, he was also big into Mega Man. He had some of the Battle Network games too, so that's how I actually played a few of those.
Fair enough.
But he lent me, I think it was Mega Man Star Force 2 when he was done, and I started a file on that, and I enjoyed playing that. So later on, I actually went back and I bought Star Force Leo to play for myself. Actually, I bought it at ANC Games in Toronto, which is like a great game store that I often buy games from. I think I've talked about how I've built my GameCube collection up so much since starting to go there all the time. Whenever I visit Toronto, I always make a visit or two there just to pick up something. But I bought Mega Man Star Force Leo, and I loved it. And I actually liked it a lot more than 2. Even though 2 had like it was a bigger game and had more story, kind of like how Battle Networks 2 and onwards are so much bigger than Battle Network 1. I kind of liked the intimate, smaller feel of the first game.
Yeah.
And 3 I've never played, and I'd never even seen anybody own it. So I don't know what happened. But 0 and ZX was really like my Mega Man bread and butter. Like I said, I would borrow it from my friend. I'd play 03 and 04. Then when I got the 0 collection on the DS, I played all the rest of them. But ZX, I bought
the collection.
I think I got ZX Advent actually first,
really?
And I borrowed ZX from a friend and beat ZX on my own on like a separate file. But then when ZX Advent came out, I got that because I asked for it for my birthday. And I learned about it in Nintendo Power and would pore over like the Nintendo Power articles on both of those games like fucking obsessively. I think I still have those issues somewhere. Probably like so overread that they're falling apart. Because like I said previously, I had a subscription to Nintendo Power because I was a very lucky child. And so I would just like read that all the time, just like my eyes stuck to this like Mega Man 0 and Mega Man ZX kind of content, just obsessed with like not just the art and like loving how the art looked. And like I said, Toru Nakayama's artwork is like amazing, and I bought that art book for a reason. It's also like a crying shame that they never made an art book for Mega Man ZX, because Star Force and Battle Network and 0 all got one, but ZX never got an art book, which sucks because all the promo art is super nice.
I remember looking at a bunch of Capcom posters a couple of nights ago, actually, because I was like, the wall behind me needs to be a little more decorated. I ended up getting the Street Fighter poster, but where all the Street Fighter characters are drawn by the SNK guys.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my
Blanca
god.
looks horrible, though. But
well, the SNK guys don't draw a lot of monsters, I guess.
That's it. But I mean, whatever.
They're not the Monster Men artists. They just draw men with a capital M.
Titty with a face.
Or men, the two genders, men with a capital M or titty with a capital 2 D's in the middle.
Or booty.
Booty.
The other titty gender.
Ass with $2 signs.
Yeah. What sells games? Ass. I don't know. Those S's are dollar signs. He's right. Anyway, Mega Man.
But ass. But ass is a really good way to sell a game. But ZX Advent was like the first ZX game that I owned. I played it like religiously. I played it and replayed it over time, tons of times over, and it also had an adjustable difficulty. I think it actually might have been the first game to kind of introduce that in the Mega Man series, with as having like an easy mode. So you could play easy, intermediate, or expert. Intermediate was like regular Mega Man difficulty. Expert, I imagine, is fucking impossible. Because even the easy mode version of the last boss in that game, it's a 2-stage boss fight.
God.
And it is so goddamn hard. Yeah. It's so hard. And he's a massive screen-filling piece of shit, too. Whew. Just the first one. The first one is a giant screen-filling boss. The second one is a boss that's small but zips all over the place. Sucks ass. It's so hard. But yeah, I played that game religiously. I was like obsessed with like how it was like, you know, me being a kid who grew up loving Sentai and Power Rangers, just being like, this is like Power Rangers but Mega Man. They're using a thing that's a device to turn into Mega Man, but the Mega Mans are like Power Rangers. Rangers. My fucking brain like exploded when I realized what it was. Like when I made the connection of, oh, this is Sentai but Mega Man, it was like two great tastes that taste great together.
Saban.
Like it was my brain melted. Like I was so into it, and I was obsessed with that game. I liked it so much and never shut up about it so much that I got another one of my friends to actually buy, play, and love it too, just because he fell in love with it. I had another friend who had it, and he was the one who had lent me the first ZX game, but he liked the first one more, I think. But I liked Advent a lot. I also just liked the English voice acting. Like I got so into the corny story of like this death game anime ass shit and fighting all these animal themed bosses with weird powers and all these weird voices they would give them. Like the one that I said is like a bulb that spins and attaches to vines.
Yeah.
Has like a creepy, like the whole thing with the character is depending on whether or not you play as the boy or the girl. He'll act really like combative to you if you're the girl, and he'd be like, I hate little girls. And if you're the boy, he's like, ooh, come here, little boy. And it's really fucking creepy and really horrible. That they would even do that in like a children's game is really like, thanks Japan kind of moment. But no, he's like a weird, creepy gay pedophile. It's really scary and awful. But like I was just kind of obsessed with this game. Like I was fucking obsessed with it, and I kind of still am, because when I started replaying it in the ZX collection, it was like having like a needle of pure nostalgia right between the eyes into my central cortex. Like it was so good. It was like, oh my god, I haven't felt this much like a kid in years, and it was so fun. So yeah, like I was obsessed with Mega Man ZX and Mega Man Zero, and just like I remember watching flash animations of Mega Man Zero. like some guy had made like a Newgrounds flash of like the Mega Man Zero 3 story, like where Zero fights some of the bosses, and it's fucking anime as hell, and he uses like Naruto jutsus to fight them.
Most of my Zero knowledge comes from MVC3.
Yo, straight up. Actually, yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's true. I forgot.
Big green nipple character. Just happened to be good with him.
Yep. I totally forgot about that.
And they gave him an X skin, which was rude. It was rude, honestly. It was insulting. But whatever.
That is pretty insulting. Zero is a good boy. Zero is a good boy. He should have been in that. I know the Zero is actually in Tatsunoko versus Capcom, which is really funny. He's like Zero for Mega Man X, and then it's Mega Man Volnut from Legends. Yeah. That game is really... It has such a wacko character selection with all the Tatsunoko guys, too. But,
TV scene needs... Anyway, the fighting game announcement should happen today. We got to do a regular episode so I can talk about that.
We will. Oh, next regular episode, you can go off.
Some shit.
You have words. You have words for them. You were telling me earlier how you had words.
There's a clip that I made that expresses one character explicitly.
If you can clip that into audio, I'll stick it into the next podcast.
Oh god, yeah, you know what? I might be able to. I'll see what I can do.
Please do if you can. That'd be fun as hell. But holy crap! How I was completely obsessed with these games as a kid. Battle Network. I think I I liked them a lot, and I loved playing them when I borrowed them, but because I never owned any of them, and the only game I owned that was similar to them was Star Force much later on, I never got as attached to them. But owning ZX Advent, and owning the Mega Man Zero collection, this shit was like my whole world as a kid. I loved it so much. And like, that's just kind of one of the things I want to tap into with this show, is just like these fond childhood memories of games that, like, you know, games that nobody talks about but deserve to be talked about because they gave so many people so much joy.
We have to have a Monster Hunter episode.
Oh, believe me, we will talk about
shit,
3DS Monster
because
Hunter
that's
games.
that. Just I was thinking of like games that kind of got overlooked on the DS that I've like actually been super deep into, and
there were 2 whole ass Monster Hunter games.
There was technically 4.
What?
Yeah, bud.
I didn't even know that.
Right.
Okay. You're gonna be the one educating
I'll
me in that
story.
episode, because I don't know shit about Monster Hunter.
One of them
but
I haven't played.
I love playing them when I do.
One of them I haven't played because it was it is still Japan exclusive.
Okay.
I might get it imported and just try to figure it out, because like the story in Monster Hunter never really mattered. But anyway, whatever. It's another episode. I'm gonna.
Yeah. That's really, really cool. I actually didn't know that there are that many on that console.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then when Azure Striker Gunvolt came out, Inta creates his kind of spiritual sequel. I bought the first 2 of them. I have like them on Switch, and I have them on 3DS as well.
Nice.
And then I also have Luminous Avenger X, which is like the spin-off to those games where you play as the secondary main character X, which those ones are really fun too. X is like a weird hyper-religious zealot, though, which is a strange character to have as a protagonist, but he's interesting. And they also did a spin-off, I think, with Mighty No. 9 called Mighty Gunvolt, which is like a crossover between Gunvolt and Mighty No. 9, but I imagine is much better than Mighty No. 9.
I think I remember that, and people were like, wow, Mighty No. 9's finally in a good game. Which was like the meme of the,
Mighty No. 9.
Poor
people who invested their time into that.
Have you seen the because there's in the credits there's the thank you notes for backers, right? And
no.
it's just it's the wall of shame, essentially.
Oh god. How many people spent money on that fucking game?
Lot. It's a really long list, and the funniest thing is going back through like Super Best Friends podcast or whatever, and them just being like, yeah, Mighty No. 9, you know, like, it's gonna be fucking sick, I can't wait. And then like afterwards they're just kind of like
oop.
And like since but that's the thing too, and they've named it a couple of times too, where they're like, since then, like, I need to see gameplay footage. I want to
I taught a lot of people a hard lesson.
Yeah. It's like, I think too many people got fucked by that, especially the people who were like, I want it on the DS. And then it was like,
a cool unreleased DS Mega Man game that would have been a thing but never was Mega Man Legends 3. We almost could have spoken about it had it come out. But Mega Man Legends 3 was in development for the 3DS around the time the 3DS was launching, and Inafune totally fucking shat the bed on that game. I think they announced it too early, made all this shit like fan interactive, like having fans design some of the characters, and they released like a demo for it, and then it never came out. It just was canceled. Classic Inafune.
Yeah.
Right? Keiji Inafune is a piece of shit. He is not the person that he led people to believe he was. His involvement in Mega Man was always from a production standpoint. He was never really a developer. He was maybe an artist on some of them, but he was
very clearly an artist on some of them. If you look, looking at Mighty No. 9, you're like, this looks like a Mega Man thing. And
it looks like Mega Man Powered Up, the PSP game.
Oh.
Remember that game?
Remember the Mega Man CGI cartoon that came out like last year? Where the robot's in his head?
Oh god,
remember?
Please stop. I don't want to think about that. It's so bad.
Remember when the trailer dropped and everyone just kind of went, ugh.
Yeah, everybody. I think the voice acting was like, "Meganize me," and I'm like, "Don't rip off Mega Merge, bitch."
Yeah,
they're stealing ZX's shit and making it worse.
Go cringe, bro. Ha ha ha. That's good.
I think the funniest thing to me about the Mighty No. 9 thing, actually looping it back around to ZX and Zero, is that all these people bitching about, oh, I would love to get a game that's in the style of classic Mega Man. Firstly,
no.
There were a bunch of games. You could have played them. You didn't.
Secondly,
secondly,
you were bad at the old Mega Man games.
You were bad at the old Mega Man games, and there was Mega Man 9 and 10, which are both very good. Oh, Mega Man 9 and 10.
Yes. Yeah, true.
For the Wii. Those were great, and for digital other platforms. They were on the Wii? And shit. Yeah, Mega Man 9 and 10 were WiiWare games initially, I believe.
Weird. Did not know that.
Weird.
Mega Man 11's good.
That's a good name for a that's a good name for a Wii spin-off. Weird.
Oh god.
Weird.
There's gonna be a Wii podcast in a week.
That's the April Fool's episode we do is Weird. Welcome back to Weird. It's the Wii podcast that we've been doing for however many episodes at that point. But yeah, I guess in conclusion, Mega Man was pretty prominent on the DS for a long time in like multiple series, but for some reason they just weren't as fondly remembered or as widely appreciated as not only the Game Boy games, but as the classic series were. Like to the extent that the 3DS, like I said, never got like a new Mega Man game.
Yeah.
Never, not even Mega Man Legends 3. Like they couldn't even get that up and running. And the only Mega Man games that came out on the 3DS were ports of older games and like Legacy Collection type stuff. But and now Mega Man 0 and ZX are so old that they have their own Legacy Collection.
No,
so
Mega Man.
So I highly recommend, I guess, if you haven't played the Zero series or the ZX games,
or the Battle Network games.
Or the Battle
Network
games,
which are easily emulatable. I did it like 2-3 years ago.
They're very easily emulatable. They don't
There's
require
no crash really. There's
a
lot of
they're
good
super
versions.
easy to go back
it's
to.
Super easy to find.
Obviously, you can't do everything. You can't do linked battles with people and stuff like that. But honestly, whatever. You don't really. The solo games are good enough, just like the Pokemon games.
Yeah, exactly. The base
are good enough without
perfect.
the multiplayer. But I would highly recommend you revisit those games if you never had a chance to play them. And obviously, you can legally revisit ZX and Zero. But while you're out there emulating the Battle Network games and perhaps ordering the Star Force games, because it's hard to emulate DS games, ordering the Star Force games for yourself to play on the DS, fucking beg Capcom. Beg them. Tag them and shit. Ask them, like, when are we getting a Battle Network
Make them fix the Street Fighter V netcode. Also
makes them, God.
Please, I want to play Akira with good internet. God, that's all I want. Oro's back too. Oh man, next base episode of Game Punks is gonna be Street Fighter. That's it.
This is gonna be the Street Fighter.
I'm gonna go.
And what do we do? We're gonna be fighting in the streets over this damn game.
We'll record the podcast on one of our phones while we're walking through the Montreal construction zones. It'll be the best audio quality you've ever heard.
Omoe But that would be quite something. But so the Mega Man games on the DS are great. Yes. There were so many of them, and it's crazy that for such a prolific and popular series that these ones kind of flew under a lot of people's radar.
I mean, they even flew under my radar, and I fucking love Mega Man.
And you like Mega Man, yeah. So do yourselves a favor and get in on those. Play the Star Force games, play the Zero games, play the ZX games.
I blame Capcom's advertising division for this one, honestly, though.
Yeah, I think they do bear a lot of the brunt of the blame for some of the lack of success.
This was also peak my Mega Man interest while the DS was a thing. Like, I was playing Mega Man X religiously after playing Battle Network. So like I
had Mega Man X
anything with Mega Man
on
it. I was like,
that's
my shit. That and DBZ in that time frame was like,
and of course, like, you watch the anime for Mega Man Battle Network, Mega Man Anti-Warrior. I would watch that shit on Teletoon whenever I had the chance. I had the toys. I love the toys. I would play it when I borrowed it from a friend. You know, like I love those games. There's nostalgia for these games. Capcom needs to recognize that people will play a game if the word Mega Man is in the title. The fact that like Mega Man Soccer even exists is proof of that. Like, if Mega Man is in the frickin' title, people want to play it. So Capcom, please release a Battle Network Legacy Collection, release a Star Force Legacy Collection. Get these games accessible so that people can enjoy them, because they're really, really good.
True.
And thank you for ZX Collection. I'm very thankful that I get to play those on my Switch, on my fucking TV.
I'm gonna have to get that on Steam
and feel like a total boss. Do it. You will not regret it. So thank you very much for joining us on our second episode of Touch Generation. I'm Ryan.
I'm Ben. Sorry, I zoned out.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's where you say you're Ben.
Line?
I am Ben.
Hi, I'm Ryan. Ah, fuck. Shit. No, I'm Ben.
Perfect.
I'm going to be streaming in 40 minutes. 30 minutes? Oh, God.
And your brain is
27 minutes. No. Maybe I might push it back to like 8:45 or something, but yeah,
might be a better
rough
idea.
Day. It's been busy.
Yeah.
This is the Capcom shit this morning. My toilet broke. God, what a day! Did we talk about that at the beginning of the podcast? I'll talk about it next.
I don't
podcast.
think we did.
My toilet broke.
Next podcast, Ben's toilet
opening
adventures.
story: toilet adventures.
Let's take a deep dive.
Into my toilet story. What went wrong in the toilet?
Thank you very much for listening to our Nintendo DS podcast where we talk about the Ben's toilet. And the Game Boy Advance.
Where I spent most of my time playing the DS.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the DS is looping it back around once again. The DS, great toilet system.
It is.
Excellent system to play on the toilet. Thank you guys for joining us. I had a really good time talking about these games. I love these games. If you couldn't tell, they're some of my favorites, and I'm glad that I got to introduce anybody who wasn't already familiar with them to them. But yeah, I've been Ryan. That's Ben.
I will continue being Ben after this. For a
you
short
will continue
time.
being Ben.
Maybe 5 hours.
And I guess you'll join us on another one soon when we tackle another great series of underappreciated or otherwise kind of underrated, ambitious or interesting games for the Nintendo DS.
Yeah.